Hello and welcome to this Critical Thinking Study Skills online lecture. And this is primarily for level 5, but by all means at level 4 do pick up some tips and begin to think about critical thinking within your assignments. At level 5, you'll find that the assessment criteria may look along certain lines, such as to further develop a critical understanding of mission and evangelism through critical biblical study skills, or demonstrate competence in theological reflection and biblical exegesis and their use to critically evaluate approaches to evangelism. The key word here is critical or critically. This means the requirement is to move beyond description or summary towards an analysis of strengths and weaknesses. This allows you to bring your own thoughts to your work. This gives you an opportunity to say what your take on the area of study is. Let us take further opportunity to explore what critical writing is. It's a clear and confident refusal to accept the conclusions of others without evaluating the arguments and evidence that they provide. It's a balanced presentation of reasons why the conclusions of other writers may be accepted or may need to be treated with caution. It might be a clear presentation of your own evidence and argument, then leading to your conclusion, or it may be a recognition of the limitations in your own evidence, argument, and conclusion. Let's look at the differences between critical writing and descriptive writing. With merely descriptive writing, you are not developing argument, you are merely setting the background within which an argument can be developed. You are representing the situation as it stands without presenting any analysis or discussion. You're setting the scene. Descriptive writing is relatively simple. There is also the trap that it can be easy to use many words from your word limit, simply providing description. You may find you're even repeating yourself in effect. In providing only description, you are presenting but not transforming information. You are reporting ideas but not taking them forward in any way. An assignment using only descriptive writing would therefore limit the student to a very low grade. Here are some tips and hints to accompany your critical writing. This can help you find your academic voice. When you engage in critical writing, you're developing your own academic voice within your subject. This is massively important if you wish to go on to further study. Here are some tips from Wellington et al. Healthy skepticism, but not cynicism. So you can be unsure of what someone is saying without needing to be negative or unprofessional about their stance. It offers confidence, but not cockiness or arrogance. It offers judgment, which is critical, but not dismissive. You can offer opinions without being opinionated. You can take careful evaluation of published work. You can be fair, assessing fairly the strengths and weaknesses of other people's ideas and writing without prejudice and making judgments on the basis of considerable thought and all the available evidence, rather than merely making generalizations and assumptions. You can get into the habit of writing critically by first reading critically, thinking about what you're reading and what your responses are to the subject material. Putting together quotes. When you put together quotes, you can put them together in such a way that they interact, or that you put people's arguments as though they are conversing with one another or opposing one another. Be careful to make it clear what you're doing when you put together quotes, because they also need interpretation and explanation to help your reader to understand why it is you've chosen those quotes and why those things are going to back up your point or have been part of your inquiry. So again, the paragraphs of your argument need to be in order and in a coherent, put together in a coherent way. One of the ways of doing this is to separate into paragraphs your description or your introduction to a topic and your analysis and critical exploration of that topic and the evidence that you use to support this point. Finally, by getting your paragraphs into a certain order, you can work out whether you've included relevant material or whether you've put things in because you like them. Do withhold from making the mistake of including things that look good but you haven't explained or been able to develop. I've taken the opportunity to put together a visual aid for critical analysis. So we start in the top middle of the slide, and you start each point by introducing your point clearly. You give ideally a coherent link from the previous point so that it starts to flow. You support this point with the evidence that you have collected. You want something that is reliable and ideally an original piece of evidence. That's all the more important as you go up the levels within your study. So you want to have evidence that is legitimate and someone who actually has some experience in the field or has extensively studied that field in order to give credibility to what you want to say. A really special way of interacting with your point that you're going to make is to allow different sources to interact. They may disagree with one another, but that's okay so long as you make it clear that you understand that one point actually would indicate that another point perhaps doesn't have as much validity or could be interpreted a different way. All things are possible so long as you explain what it is you're doing, because if it's not clear that you're contrasting these points, it can lead to concern that you're confused on the point you're making. With the evidence you've got, you can then state observations you're making about either the initial point that you made or the evidence that the different sources have given. You may wish to say A says this, but B states that, and I would prefer to agree with person A because, and give your reasons. The more that you have read on these topics, the more you'll find you're able to state what it is you want to say with credibility yourself. That's why we don't encourage you to offer your opinion too early on in the course, because it can seem that it isn't justified what it is you're saying. And then ideally at the end of the point, you should conclude with a linking sentence in order that your essay will flow. But we'll cover essay structure more in a different online learning. You'll see that if you do the beginning and end of these points well, that there will be a cyclical flow to your assignment. So I hope that's helpful for you. All the best.